Hey guys, so today you and I are going to talk about lying on your resume. So let's get into it. So the question in question was, Frederick, do you think I should lie on my resume? I have been trying to get a job for about 2 to 3 years now. I have no commercial experience and I never worked at the company. Well, I'm gonna say it depends. I'm going to, based on what you gave me, which is really nice now because I can almost definitively say no now. And the reason why I can almost definitively say no is because you gave me two very critical pieces of information, and that is that you have no commercial experience and you've never worked at the company. So what I usually like to say when the question comes, should I lie on my resume, is exaggerating is not the same thing as lying. Well, it is, and I mean, I'm very sensitive to this sort of stuff. But hey, this is how this world that we all live in, it kind of works. I mean, the companies are doing it, and they unfortunately, this is kind of the problem. It becomes this weird staircase of false expectations because somebody embellishes a little bit and then people believe that embellishment and then they have to embellish on top of that and then the next person believes that. So you just kind of build things up until the only thing that is worth paying attention to is complete fiction. But that's me and how I feel about it. So what I'm basically saying is that you can embellish, and I like to say that a good lie is something that flies under the radar. Because the problem with lying on your resume is that if they check, well, if they can check, they might find out that you're lying. And trust me, there are everything from very trusting companies to people who are like, they are really looking for holes in the ships in the armor, and like they're really like doing background checks and all of this stuff, and like referrals and references and like all of this stuff, right? So lying in a way that is very easy to check is a very bad idea. So if you say that you had a lot of commercial experience and you don't have a single reference, that's not going to look good. Just saying, right? But on the other hand, if you say that you've been involved in projects, or like if you can tie it into, like if you can wrap the lie in something that is true, as an example, you could, if for the sake of arguments, say that you want to move up to become a manager. Well, if you've never been a manager, you don't really have any prior experience, but you can twist the fact that, I don't know, you took over for your real manager that one time in that one meeting and helped out with a few code challenges for someone, or you did something nice with the copy machine or something, I don't know. You can twist that into quote unquote experience, and trust me, there's a lot of that going on, especially in the fluffy PowerPoint presentation jobs and everything in kind of in middle management. It's really hard sometimes to pin down if somebody actually knows anything in middle management. That's been my experience at the very least. Anywho, the thing I want to mention though, which is because usually this is my answer, like I'm just saying you can embellish, but you cannot lie in a way that makes it easy to check, because of this one thing, and that is that you need to sell the lie. And that's why I tell this specific person, no, you should not lie in that, because based on what you are telling me, if you are socially gifted, like go for it if you think it's going to help your chances, but the likelihood of you being able to sell this is nigh on null. I don't think you're going to be able to sell this because you will not be able to speak the lingo. I'll give you an example. So I have now interviewed quite a few people for different positions within companies and at different levels, like everything from like a tiny startup up to like the size of a gigantic super corporation with thousands and thousands and thousands of people who work for them. And the range of people working in that company is of course wide, but there's and like the way that each company, depending on which one we're talking about, all of them have their own recruiting process, but there's almost always one specific thing that every company does. And I think this is the reason. The thing that you are asking me about, this is why you should be doing this. And if you are a company listening to this and you're not doing this, then you are so bad at hiring developers. And that one thing is the technical interview, not the code test. A actual discussion between the candidate and working software developers that are within the company. The reason why this, and this is, you've probably, if you've seen any of my other videos about this, I've said this many times before, this is my favorite thing to have as part. Like, I have my own ideal recruitment process and like screening process for software development, but this is my favorite thing. It is, if I can only pick one thing, it is the only thing I care about. I need to be able to talk to the candidate, or you need to have a person who has some type of experience talk to the candidate, because you cannot fake experience. It is impossible. I've just the other day I was interviewing this dude who had, I think, 12 or 13 years of so-called work experience, and I went in with an open mind, even though I could see immediately on his CV that most of the stuff that he was listing, I mean, he had relevant quote-unquote tools for the role, so it wasn't like he was not that obvious, but I could also see that there's a lot of Salesforce work, a lot of WordPress work, and like this is me being a little bit me, where when you get to a certain level, when you interview enough people and you talk to enough types of developers, you kind of know what types of tools usually perpetuates certain types of work. As an example, I am almost always certain that when I'm dealing with a PHP exclusive developer, I'm dealing with somebody who doesn't have a very strong understanding of, say, domain-driven design, or something that I would expect to find from someone who's working with Java. If I find a front-end developer, I'm usually very on asking about tooling and things related to the ecosystem, because I know that that is the most important thing when you are like an experienced front-end developer. Asking a few trivial questions about JavaScript, that's not going to help you. So this specific candidate, who has like twice at the very least my experience, could not even answer the most basic of questions. And like, he had listed all kinds of stuff on his CV. He was like passionate about development, he was this and that, and like he loved React, etc., whatever it was like perfect. And a simple question about, like, can you explain how a promise works, or could you talk a little bit about the hook system in React? He had no clue about any of it, and it was just embarrassing for everybody involved. Like, we just sat there and kind of like, he tried to fake it, like he really did, and it always sounds the same way. It's like, oh yes, of course, and because they always start the same way. Oh yes, of course, it means and then they kind of go, oh no, and they try to give you like some type of half answer. It's never straight. It's never like, a good clear explanation. Because that's the thing. What I'm saying, guys, you will not fake it. I promise you, you're not gonna fake it. I'm gonna hear, or whoever, if there's an experienced developer interviewing you, they're gonna hear like that, if you know this or not. And that's the problem with lying on your resume, or creating this false idea of that you're better than you are. The thing that I can tell you that you should be doing, rather in specifically this case, what I highly suggest that you do instead of lying on your resume, because my guess is that if you've been trying for this long, you might lack experience. That's one thing, but you might also lack education, because the thing I don't know is, are you even getting any interviews? There could be many reasons why you're not actually getting any type of jobs. Without more information, I can give you more guidance, but the thing that seems to be the problem here is that you might have to either do freelancing work to like increase your personal experience. You might have to go back to school, go to school for the first time. Maybe you're self-taught, I don't know. Maybe you need to improve your CV. There are tons of stuff that you could be doing. It's just that I can't tell you what to do without knowing more. So what I want you to take away from this is that generally I say that relying on your resume is dangerous, because one thing, it's always a danger to oversell yourself, because companies they do checks, Some of them more than others, but they will check, and that's not a fun situation to be in. And the other thing is that if you can also create, if you inflate your value too much, people will realize very quickly that you're not as good as you might have sold that you are, and buyer's remorse is a very real thing. And finally, if you have no commercial experience or any type of prior work experience, don't even try to lie about you having any of that stuff. Because you're not, if you get through to a technical interview, going to survive even, like, I mean, I think the shortest session I ever had with a candidate, we booked an hour. It took almost, I think we, out of courtesy, we stretched it to 15 minutes because she had no knowledge of anything that was even slightly experience based. Like, we're talking about the most basic questions that you could imagine, things that I myself got asked on my first job right out of school. She had no knowledge of. And so we could figure out immediately that her resume was complete bullshit. So be careful with that, because if you get to a technical interview, I promise you, you're not going to be able to fake experience. Have a great day.